Reviewing today the Black Island, The Adventures of Tintin. Um, so you can probably tell from my voice that I'm sick. In fact, I'm not just sick, I've got COVID. It finally caught up to me. I made it this long without catching it, but it gets to all of us sooner or later, doesn't it? So I don't want to talk too much about it in this video because I don't want to derail the video by getting on this long tangent about COVID. I'll talk about it in the weekly reading vlog I do at the end of the week. That's where I talk about this kind of stuff. But just to say very briefly, apologies for the fact that my voice is sounding not good. I'm not. Apologies in advance if I start coughing at any point during this video. The way I figure it, as long as you're stuck self-isolating in your apartment, you might as well read some comics and make some videos. I like to make the videos as I go through these comics. I don't want to like read 3 of them and then try and go back and remember what the first one is. So even though this is not going to be the best quality video, I'm just going to plow ahead with it anyways. Apologies in advance, and as always, feel free not to watch. Okay, so I'm up to the Black Island. So this is book number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the Tintin series. It's really book number 7 if you count the fact that there's a book here, Tintin in the Congo, which is no longer published in English. So this one starts out in Belgium, but it sees Tintin travel to England and Scotland. So I guess the conceit is Tintin travels to an exotic location in each of these books, and in this book it's England and Scotland. So the author of Tintin, Herge, is how you pronounce it, I think, is of course an English. No, sorry, is from Belgium. According to Wikipedia, though, he was enamored with England. I think they called it what do they call it? Anglophile, based on the fact that he remembered England helping Belgium back during World War One. These comics were written during the 1930s, so he was old enough to remember World War One. He was a child at the time, and so presents a positive portrait of England and Scotland throughout, according to Wikipedia. Actually, Wikipedia said that that's the reason it portrayed a positive portrait of England and Scotland. I myself thought it was a neutral portrait. I mean, they portrayed the British police as bumblers, but nice. The thing is, Tintin runs into trouble everywhere he goes. He's Tintin. That's the whole conceit of this comic. Anyways, I'm going to try not to talk too long about this comic because of the obvious reason that my voice is terrible, but also because I don't. There's really not too much to say. This comic bored me, to be honest. It wasn't quite as terrible as the first 2, but it wasn't as good as the last 2 I've read. I was expecting when I went to Wikipedia to read something about how this was like a low point in the Tintin series, but apparently some of the critics actually liked it. The odd thing to me, the really odd thing, throughout this book, Tintin is tracking a gang of international forgerers. And I kept thinking to myself, why does he care? I mean, what is Tintin's job anyways? In the first book, it was established that he was a reporter, even though he's supposedly somewhere between 15 to 19, according to Wikipedia. I think in these other books, he was invited into somebody asked them to help on the case, or there was like a human life at stake. or like, big stakes. Here, there's these unregistered planes flying around, which Tintin stumbles around on, and they shoot him. So yeah, how's that for an opening page? But turns out they only grazed him. He recovered. And he meets his friends Thompson and Thompson. And they say, like, there's something fishy going on with these unregistered planes. And Tintin wants in on the mystery. So he gets out of bed against doctor's orders, flees the hospital, runs away from the hospital. And then he is, for the rest of the comic, just doggedly in pursuit of these strange people who fly unregistered planes, until finally, about halfway through the comic, he finds out what they're actually up to. Where is it? Oh yeah, here we go. He finds out that they're actually forgers, and he says, "Forgerers, so that's your game. You'll go to jail for this." So, yeah, this is on page 27. He finally finds out that these mysterious people he's been tracking the whole time are indeed criminals. Well, sorry, he knew they were criminals because they kept trying to kill him. But he found out now that they're forgers. Then they get away and he has to keep chasing them. But, forgery, I know it's not good, but, like, it's a non-violent crime. There's no, like, human lives he has to save. I mean, obviously the police need to catch forgers, but Tintin's not a police. He's just this boy somewhere between 15 and 19 who just is really obsessed with this for some reason. And then, so they find out that he's chasing them in a plane, and they get away. But then he hears a radio report that the plane has been discovered floating wreckage of a light aircraft. There was no trace of the crew, who presumed drowned. The plane we followed, the same registration. Well, that puts paid to it. They're dead, poor devils. Maybe. But I'd like to be absolutely sure. I'm going to Kiltalk to look around. And I think, what? Well, why do you care? He just, I mean, obviously I know why he cares, because it's just the conceit of comics that the hero fights crime. I mean, it's like asking, why does Batman care? Batman, just wherever he finds crime of any sort, just has to pursue it till he finally gets his man. I don't think it's been so blatantly established thus far that Tintin is just relentlessly pursuing criminals of any stripe. But okay. If it hadn't been established before, it's established in this comic. If there are any mysterious gangs, any forgers, any ne'er-do-wells of any sort, Tintin is going to track them down. So aside from the fact that I didn't really understand why Tintin cared about the forgers, the big problem with this comic is the same problem that's with every Tintin comic. Namely that there's just an awful lot of padding in this. And that is, I'm 100% sure, or almost 100% sure, because it was serialized in the newspapers originally. So you've got to stretch the story out. So it's just constant. Tintin gets caught. Tintin escapes. Tintin gets caught again. Tintin escapes. Then Tintin gets caught again. Tintin escapes. And then Tintin passes out. And then Tintin is rescued. Tintin finds the forgerers. Tintin ties them up. The forgerers escape. Tintin chases them. The forgerers escape. Tintin chases them some more. They escape some more. He chases them some more. Tintin gets caught. Tintin negotiates his way out. Forgerers escape. Tintin chases them. Tintin goes to a mysterious island. Tintin gets caught in a cave. Tintin escapes. Tintin catches the forgerers. Forgerers escape. You get the idea. And spoilers, by the way. There may be some light spoilers in this review. It's just all of these books are very repetitive. If you go to the Wikipedia article, there's some interesting additional information on here. Apparently, Herge originally wanted to make this a tale about Tintin pursuing a gang of anarchists who had like we're going to do terrorist bombings or something like that, and that would have given the book a bit more stakes, but his editors talked him out of it for whatever reason. I don't know if some of the long beards on some of these characters could... Where's the guy with the long beard? Go back to this guy here. Go back to the idea of them being anarchists. But there was also something about forgerers in the news at the time, and at the time being the early 30s. There was a Scottish forgerer, which is where the idea comes to place this in Scotland, or part of it in Scotland. Scottish forgerer who had fascist... He was in the news at the time. He had fascist sympathies. He was engaged in a plot to forge a whole bunch of rubies and collapse the Soviet economy. This was, I guess, before Stalin and Hitler had made their treaty with each other. Although, according to Wikipedia, because the newspaper that Herge worked at had right-wing sympathies, they changed everyone's name to Soviet-sounding names in this forging gang. But that was only for the original French publication. When it got translated into English, they changed the names into German again. The mysterious castle was... I forgot. There was something on Wikipedia about the mysterious castle. There was Loch Ness, I guess, was in the popular imagination at the time, so lakes in Scotland. And then a giant ape, which, according to Wikipedia, remember these comics are from the early 30s, is a direct influence of how popular King Kong was at the time. Now, the ape's not nearly as big as King Kong, but same idea, I guess. The Thompson twins are in this Tintin adventure again. They've well-established reoccurring characters now. I think they've been reoccurring since book 3. And I'm not sure if they're going to be better friends of Tintin in the future. I get the impression just from what I've picked up from other media that they are supposed to be allies of Tintin. But in every book so far, they end up chasing Tintin because they mistakenly believe he's a criminal. So, it starts out they're friends with him because at the end of every book, they make up. But then Tintin gets framed very early on in page 3 And then from here on, for the rest of the comic, the Thompson twins are chasing Tintin, and Tintin constantly has to be escaping from them until, of course, when we get to the end, and then they once again realize that Tintin had been right all along. They do work nice as comic relief. There's thought kind of a funny scene here where they commandeer a plane and they force someone to fly it. Where was that? Yeah. So that's enough. No ifs or buts. We're the police, see? And we're commandeering this plane and you to fly it. Police, understand? But then it turns out, I'm sorry, sir. I'm doing my best. It's the first time I've flown. I'm just a mechanic. So they're in the hands of this mechanic who doesn't know how to fly the plane. Now, this you've got to suspend your disbelief a little bit because this gag goes on for several pages, and well, they're still flying with that mechanic who doesn't know how to fly. Tintin lands his plane, goes to bed, gets up the next morning, makes a 15-mile journey to Kiltach, gets in a boat, goes to the island, does all these adventures, and then they're still kind of stuck in that situation at the end, where they're still with that mechanic who doesn't know how to fly. So I don't know how much fuel planes carried with them in the 1930s, but it wasn't enough for several days, right? But yeah, if you suspend your disbelief, it's kind of funny. And then they somehow stumble into plane acrobatics competition. Ended up winning first prize, even though they weren't trying to do acrobatics. It's just that the mechanic didn't know how to fly the plane. Kind of funny. A lot of gun violence in these Tintin comics. I think guns in kids' media is something that has gone in and out of fashion. So is probably perfectly normal in the 1930s. Definitely when I was a kid, like I think in the 1980s or something, there was either, not sure if there was a regulation, but you wouldn't have all this gun violence in a children's cartoon. And then maybe, I don't know, maybe people loosen up about it and it comes back into fashion. But struck me as a little bit, I don't know what the word is. It seemed to be incongruous with this kind of story, with to have all this gun violence. But then I remind myself that it's from the 1930s. So, this is that they were a lot more tolerant of guns in media back in the 1930s. What else do I want to say? According to Wikipedia, I think this guy comes back to be a future antagonist to Tintin. Have to look out for that in future books. This book also establishes that Snowy, Tintin's dog, likes to drink whiskey. So they're on the whiskey, and gets drunk and then seeks out more whiskey. Wikipedia said something about this. I'm not sure if this is a reoccurring gag that occurs in future Tintin books about Snowy liking whiskey. It comes up. Yeah, here it comes up again and later. So, anyways, said this was going to be a short video, and I still talked for 20 minutes. I'm sorry. If you watch this channel, you know I'm a rambler. I always promise I'm not going to ramble on, and I always do. I guess at this point, you know what you're getting. Okay, so I'll finish up here, and then I'll be back next time with King Otakar's scepter.